Con noi abbiamo Jessica Lee Patterson, un applauso. Jon Peterson, Erol Otus e Tyler Jacobson. Prima di iniziare una piccola domanda, facciamo un piccolo sondaggio. Quanti di voi preferiscono ascoltare il panel in inglese e quanti di voi invece hanno bisogno della traduzione in italiano, altrimenti non capiscono niente? Quelli che preferiscono l'inglese. Ok. So I guess we'll be continuing in English and our guests will be pretty happy. In case somebody wants to hear a translation, we have Chiara, sorry. Just go towards Chiara and she will give you, a live translation, like in a lower voice, so we are all able to follow this. The only problem now is my broken English, but guys, bear with me, okay?
Better than our Italian.
John, you don't have a microphone? Okay. Maybe one will come, but in case you guys
Erol and I can share. It's okay.
Okay.
We're tight.
We're pretty good. Okay, real quick before we begin, I thought it would have been nice to remember a very important D&D artist who passed away just last night. His name is Greg Hildebrand, and give him an applause, please. It's a very bad news we received this evening. I mean, we won't go... Of course, this is not the space and the platform to remember him properly, but we all thought it would have been nice to give him a salute. Okay. Especially also because one of his artwork is in the exhibition, so I don't know whether you guys would like to say real quick something about Greg's art and involvement in D&D before we get into it.
Well, you might have heard of the Hildebrand brothers. Actually, there were two of them, Tim and Greg. The artwork we have in the exhibition is called Skarda's Mirror. Is it?
Yeah, it's up.
Do you have slides? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a work featuring portals, which has been a big theme of this exhibition, portals and gateways, and you can see the adventurers are encountering a maybe unexpected portal. Yes, another piece we have by Tim Hildebrand is Ravenloft piece, a very spooky figure from the Ravenloft horror setting of D&D.
Interesting. So guys, I'm honestly very curious about your experience in curating this so important exhibition and doing this in Lucca. I mean, how was it? What was the project? What you guys were trying to achieve?
I will say, in terms of what we're trying to achieve, it's all about these gentlemen and the many other amazing artists that have helped us realize these 50 years of Dungeons & Dragons. And we're so thrilled to have them here because we are featuring some of their pieces here. A classic Dragon magazine cover by Erol. If anyone here ever played a module called The Keep on the Borderlands, he did the back cover of that was in a lot of the early basic sets. And I understand might even be coming back here. The Keep on the Borderlands might be a future product. And of course, Tyler has been, I would say, you got most of the work, right, for doing covers for 5th edition. If we counted them up, yeah. I think your body count is the highest.
A high percentage, for sure.
Yeah, it's a high percentage.
Yeah.
So we're thrilled to be able to just showcase their work. But as a project, why don't you speak a bit, Jessica, to how we got started on this and like what it's been like to put this together?
Well, this is the first major exhibition of works from the Coder collection, and this collection is extraordinary. I mean, I didn't even know there was so much D&D art in the world, and so much of it is now under one roof. And so it was really tough to make the selection because we wanted to represent 50 years of D&D's history with works going all the way back to the very beginning and publications coming out even this year. We have actually an interior from the new Dungeon Master's Guide. I haven't even seen the book yet, so I was kind of really hoping that it would be in there. But yeah, we were so grateful for the Lucca team who proposed this exhibition and organized the venue, and so, installed it so very beautifully. And so we made the selection, we tried to organize a good walkthrough, but honestly, the Lucca team deserves the lion's share of the credit.
They do. Let's give them an applause. I mean, Gabriele Cenni, Luca Bitonte, Silvia Ceccarelli, and many others did an amazing job. and I say this without the flattery. I think it might be the most relevant cultural experience that happened in the pop culture. Like, it's been really moving to be there, and thank you guys, really, for real. And the Lucca team again. So, I mean, I prepared some images from those gentlemen as well, and in general, a few stuff we might want to talk about. So, I mean, I'll be browsing in general, okay, but if you guys want to point at something, I try to go a little bit in chronological order, okay? So, I mean, one of the interesting things will be what's your opinion about the evolution of these 50 years? Because, I mean, Jessica is a very skilled and well-trained art historian, and she's used to delving into, you know, like centuries of stuff going on. And like, this is just 50 years, but a lot of things happened in these 50 years, right? I mean, what was back then the beginning of, you know, how was art at the beginning of D&D?
My specialty was Asian and Buddhist art when I made this switch, so I'm not by any means an expert on the art of the 1970s in America. But what I can say is that the 20th century saw a real demotion of figurative art. Abstraction, modern art. In the 70s, when this happened, just the idea of painting recognizable forms was very unfashionable in the art world. And so we see almost these artists being rebellious and kind of recapturing a sense of, you know, beauty and mystery and telling, you know, actual stories that you could recognize in works of art, not something you could see in, you know, a lot of contemporary high modern abstract works from the 20th century. So I view this art as actually a kind of a both returning to the past and a little bit of a rebellion.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, so the piece that we see here, of course, was the frontispiece of the Dungeon Master's Guide in 1979 by an artist named Darlene Peckel. She goes by Darlene in general. And one interesting thing to point out is that there was far more female representation in the early artists of D&D than you would expect. Even if you go back to that 1974 brown box, you'll find that actually half of the artists who are credited in that were women. One of them was a woman named Keenan Powell, who was Gary Gygax's sister-in-law. It was his wife's little sister. She was a teenager at the time. And the other would be Violet Cookie Corey, who provided a few illustrations for it. But the main thing to get about those early illustrations is that these were teenagers who made all of them in the original D&D box set. They were paid $2 to $3 US dollars each for their illustrations. The entire art budget of 1974 D&D was $100. $100 US. And so the first thing we see in the evolution is, yes, they started out with things that it would be hard for us to argue, even especially for a credentialed art historian, should be counted as fine art. But nonetheless, because we're here at Lucca and the theme this year is the butterfly effect, this was the first flapping of the wings that would lead to people like Erol coming into this, and years later, Tyler coming into this.
Yeah, let's go ahead and show some stuff from Erol himself. I mean, because this piece already, I don't know what's your opinion, guys, but this piece to me already says that, I mean, things were already shifting from the very early days that Jon was describing. I mean, Erol was a thing on its own. It stands out still in the exhibition. I mean, you have your own thing going on.
Yeah, tell us how you got hooked into this. How did you start working for TSR? What was your path to it?
Well, we started playing with the box set when it came out in '74. We had a little group in junior high, and of course we loved it. And we made a lot of artwork. I drew monsters and treasures for my games, and we were buying the strategic review at our local game store. And I saw an advertisement in there saying they were going to come out with another magazine called The Dragon that was going to be in color, and that was exciting to me because the strategic review was monochromatic. Sometimes it would be all purple or all green. And so when I heard they were going to have a full color magazine, I just started mailing in artwork to their address. They didn't ask for it, and I hardly ever talked to them. I don't think I ever did, actually. And then I subscribed to The Dragon. And in the Dragon #2, I opened it up, I subscribed, and they had published one of my illustrations. I had no idea it was going to be in there. And so as a teenager, I was just blown away, and I kept sending things in to them. And then when Trampier had left, I think he quit, they were looking for another artist, and they just called me up. And I answered the phone, and I said, yeah, I want to do this. And moved right out to Lake Geneva from Berkeley, and that's how I started at DSR.
And
Oh,
Right, correct.
but this, I want to say one thing about this. So I was there for 79, 80, 81, and I think I went back to Berkeley visiting one time. And it was interesting because just before I was going to go home and visit, I painted this and finished it on the last day. And I think it meant something about going home to me. I felt that as I was finishing it up, just like the next day I was leaving on the plane. So
That reflects the fact that, I mean, you guys are doing illustration work, but after all, you project always something about yourself and your emotion into that,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And if actually a lot of your art reflects you and your emotions, I have some psychiatrists I could recommend to you. Obviously,
I don't want to change.
hospitalized.
I don't want to change.
I don't want to cure it.
Talking
I
of
wanna
which,
keep it.
maybe this will be interesting for your psychiatrist.
Yeah, like this one. So tell us about how you put yourself into the figure.
Well,
that we see.
yeah. I think so. I think a little bit of me is in both of those little human beings. But this was just, my love of Cthulhu and Jack Vance kind of put together. Jack Vance, the author, often comes up with situations that are both horrible and funny at the same time. It's a life or death situation, and Kugel is like taking it and trying to work it. He may succeed or may not. That's just about to happen here, yeah.
I don't think he's going to succeed, personally.
No, that's a little bit of the idea.
And back in the day, I believe also one of the biggest efforts were like depicting the covers of this game, like especially this one might be familiar to some fans, I believe. Right. This is not in the exhibition, right? But we wanted to share, since it's one of your most iconic pieces.
If only we knew where it was. If only.
What you knew where you
Someday.
When you got commissioned this, I mean, do you know it was going to be on the cover?
Yeah, we were on staff. We get different assignments, and I cannot remember how. I was very grateful to be able to do this cover. I remember that, and happy about it, and just wanted to show kind of the elements, all the elements of D&D. They're not fighting it. I like it when they're fighting, but it does have the treasure right there, the goal as well as the monster and the adventurers. Yeah.
We were talking about this with Jessica yesterday at the exhibition. It's very interesting to see how you guys in these 50 years have been constantly, shifting pieces of this dialogue in between the monster and the heroes inside the adventure. And I mean, let's do this back to back. This is Tyler's cover. Sorry for the watermark from Game Informer, guys. Thank you, Game Informer. Thank you. That's what we found.
They did a really big article on it, so it's great.
And so, I mean, the question would be like very symmetrical, Tyler. I mean, what were you trying to achieve with this cover? What you knew? I mean, you knew more about the success of the game than Erol back in the day, I believe, right?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with second edition. So I grew up with the Jeff Easley art, and so it's been like a journey. Before I forget, I did want to thank you guys, Jessica and Jon, for what you did with the exhibition. If I don't say this now, I will completely forget about it. But this was a big one for me because I'd done the 5th edition covers 10 years ago, and those were it was rushed, essentially. They just had to get it going. We had to get something going. And I think they initially intended to have 3 different artists. I did the Player's Handbook, which was actually originally done for Monster Manual, but that changed. And someone else, Raymond Swanland, did the Monster Manual. And then they didn't have anything for the DMG. It fell through. So I did the DMG in maybe a week. I think I did it in a week. So it was... Then 10 years later, I'm approached by the new art director at D&D, Josh Herman, and he was saying, let's concept these. Let's actually build these with intent. So I spent maybe 2 or 3 months doing probably 10 to 15, maybe 20 sketches per cover just to figure out what was appropriate. It was essentially like the biggest marketing art we could put together for D&D. And I wanted each book to have a particular sense to it, a feel to it, a tone. I wanted the covers to actually look like what the content was on the inside. So turn the camera around essentially for the player's handbook to see the adventuring party. Very rarely on a D&D cover do you see the adventuring party. And many years ago, I did the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, and I specifically came up with the idea of turning the camera around on the party, seeing what the peril they're in or the danger that they're experiencing. So I wanted to do that with this particular cover. I wanted it to feel like, oh, this is for the players. Same with the DMG. I wanted that to feel like this is for the Dungeon Masters. And then the Monster Manual, I wanted the mayhem of what can occur with all of the monsters that are available.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, of course, we do have in the exhibition, we're very fortunate to be able to show the cover of the original 1978 Player's Handbook, done by Tram. And it, too, kind of shows you the kinds of characters you could be if you were playing this game, the kind of situations that you might find themselves in. I am so thrilled you're continuing that legacy.
It's so important. It's easy to get lost in there's monsters and it's a battle, but it's easy to forget that this game is about everyone who plays it, that it's about the stories that you make, so I wanted to emphasize that it's about that.
Also, you did something different this time with the dragon, right?
Yeah. We wanted to. There was a couple things going on. Obviously, we wanted a dragon on the cover because there's many covers that don't have dragons on them. So we really wanted to get a dragon on, but we also wanted to show the new gold dragon that had been designed, I think, by Alex. I forget his last name, but there was a concept piece done by an artist named Chase Stone that was a really wonderful representation of what the new gold dragon looked like. And I took from that to put him on the cover. And we also wanted to show that, dragons aren't always villains. They can work with the players and be good. And that was what we were going for. The red dragon, of course, in the foreground is the villain and the evil one. But there's a friendly one with them. And then the back cover of this, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's another adventuring party on a copper dragon. I think copper dragon, bronze dragon, working together.
It's very interesting. I mean, such a shift from the red box, for instance, right? Which is a staggering piece, right? Also in historical terms, Jon, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when we did the Art and Arcana book, I actually went out to Frank Menser's house because he had it then before Matthew added it to the collection, and shot it there for Art and Arcana. And what struck me immediately, it wasn't just that it's a slightly different configuration of the red dragon and the swordsman that he's facing off against, or swordsperson, I should say these days. But that it showed the rest of the party, that you then get to see that there was actually a number of these characters and that they're in their different attitudes. The woman is casting. There's clearly a rogue there who's already gathering up the treasure preemptively. They're going to win. I'm sure the fighter will take care of it. I'll start making sure that we get this where it needs to go. And we also love being able to show these with the markings you see on the side. And the current mat that we have at the Chiesa, we're probably going to have to swap this mat out on the painting because it covers up those lovely, this is the size to shrink it to, and all these kinds of things. And those details are priceless for just being able to understand the process through which this art was made.
And just to add to the what you mentioned about the party, that was also what we were going for, is to show the collaboration that can occur in D&D. It's easy to lose that, and so on the back cover I have like a halfling riding on the back of a barbarian. Like, we wanted to get that sense of you can jump off your teammate's back and into combat or whatever. Just the idea that you work as a team, it's not a solo player game, it's a community game.
You definitely delivered there. I mean, also we were talking with Jessica yesterday. This has a sort of Michelangelo-esque composition, right? Like, it looks like one figure of creating just one group and cooperating. Whereas like the picture we've seen before, the heroes were separated, actually. They were fighting the same challenge, right?
I wanted that back-to-back feeling, like everyone get their backs against each other to fight off, be surrounded.
Definitely delivered. Jessica, what is this?
Well, we are extremely honored to have some works on loan for the exhibition from the Uffizi right up in Florence. And it was their idea, so this is why it was so gratifying. We didn't go to them begging, they actually offered, and so we couldn't believe it when we first heard. And so we have these magnificent prints, 3 prints of historical dragons from the Renaissance that you can enjoy and compare how dragons have evolved over time.
And really, our ambition in all of this, right? And the Chiesa in Lucca 2024 is just such the perfect venue for this, is to finally be able to show this sort of work in a fine arts context. And having the Uffizi make this gesture to us is so meaningful in the way that it elevates this. And these tides change quickly, or change slowly. Jessica would know better than me, right? Like what the opinions of high art and low art over the ages. There are vicissitudes, I think would be the fancy English word for it. But I think this initial exhibition is the beginning of an upward swing in this, in treating the art that people like Erol and Tyler and the countless others were showing in the exhibition, and then the even more countless others who have contributed to D&D over the years. So we're over the moon about it.
We can see that having these artworks all together helps you projecting your own curiosity toward artworks, right? Because the confrontation always makes new information after all. Like I was really interested to see these, how dragons were like in the 15th and 16th century. But it's also interesting to see how dragons were in the 70s because, this piece is a pretty famous one. Yes, and this might be like the first fantasy game dragon ever depicted, right?
Certainly the first D&D dragon.
D&D for sure, yeah. I was thinking if in general there were, I don't know, it's an open question, it's a curiosity I have now.
So technically the chainmail fantasy rules, which were the first published fantasy rules, they did a swipe in that from Farmer Giles of Ham, the Tolkien story. There is an illustration of a knight who's lancing at a dragon. That's probably actually the first game dragon that was depicted, at least in a published game product that you could buy. But yeah, Greg Bell set the tone for dragons with this. If we want to be nitpicking, this dragon does not seem to have 4 legs. This might actually be a wyvern. But at the same time, we are just, the ability to show works like this at their most primitive. Again, do you think it's worth $2 or $3 for the teenager to get this painted? I think so. I think you get your $2 or $3 worth. But this created a space then in which people who were encountering the fantastic and many monsters that you might not initially be able to visualize, right? What these books did, and almost all of the original art in the D&D books, just shows you what monsters look like, right? Because you might not know what a hippogriff looks like. You certainly would have no hope of knowing what a beholder looks like. Do we have the beholder one?
We don't.
Oh, we don't. Oh, you had it on the first slide.
Yeah, we have it on the cover. It's a small piece of the beholder.
Yeah, there.
The eye of the beholder.
Right. Greg Bell's original laconic beholder. Jessica actually wrote a great piece about this you can find in the Lucca program that talks about the evolution of the beholder over the years. You want to add anything?
No.
Well, I love this beholder. Just briefly, I just love the way it's. You can't see the hero, but he's off to the side, and the beholder. He looks like he's not paying attention, but you also know that is not true at the same time.
I know that today artists like Tyler are able to work together with art directors with, like very thick and deep art descriptions, right? I don't know what's the process is in particular for the cover, but I know you guys talk a lot, you have many information, you have many sources. Yeah. As Erol was saying, back then wasn't the situation at all. Like Mr. Greg Bell here did this all by his own imagination and he created the canon. And it's really interesting to see it next to the Uffizi dragons because that's what's the missing link in between these and stuff like that, right? These dragons changed. And what this exhibition tells me is how much they change and how much D&D artists contributed to this.
Obviously aesthetics change over years, but there's sort of, at least for dragons now, there's sort of this competition in fantasy entertainment for more and more realistic looking dragons. So we have the Weta Smaug dragon, we have Games Workshop dragons on the miniature scale. We have Game of Thrones dragons. So we now have this cinematic dragon competition. And so we rebuilt all the dragons for the new version of D&D, and it was in that intent to make the new dragons brandable. So when you see them, you know that these are D&D dragons, and in competition with the cinematic dragons that are out there. And I think the new dragons that we made are the best dragons ever created.
We have a few very interesting pieces. I strongly suggest that you try to see the exhibition with the curators, because they have so many small pieces that they can tell you about. Like, for instance, there's something interesting about this piece over here, right?
Oh, yeah. So this is something that I actually discovered while I was working on the exhibition. And one of the things that I find so fascinating about visual art is that you can look at a painting over and over again, and then years later, you'll see something new and you never saw it before. Or you can look at it with someone else and they pointed something out that you'd never just registered. This actually happened to be yesterday on my tour. One of the people pointed out a detail, and I realized I'd never really noticed that before. So as I was putting the exhibition together, I was looking at these doors, and I realized that the carved shield on the lower half of the door is what Gary Gygax claimed to be his family crest. So, and once I saw that, I began to see it in multiple other pieces. So it turns out that there are 3 pieces in our exhibition that all feature that shield. So if you go there, take note of that emblem and see if you can spot it in at least 3 different works of art.
Erol,
I'm going to sneak it in now.
Yeah. Mr. Gygax was talking about this back in the day. Do you remember?
I don't remember that. No. These are a little after me, so maybe the shield coming in was.
Well, you have
just a
the
little
Dungeon
later.
Master's Guide cover, right? The original 1979 one. Don't you have that in the slides? I think you just showed it, because that's the one with the 3 figures fighting the Ifrit.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a Dungeon Master. So that one, yeah. Can you bring that up?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, that one too. But yes, the.
Here?
Well, it's on. So it's on the pennant there, that little heraldic mark with the blue line through the center. But if you then flip back to the Dungeon Master's Guide cover, that one, you'll see it's on his shield as well. And that's the thing that is on the door that I'd never noticed before. And I've been staring at these things for years now. And I'm sure there's more. There actually does survive a picture of Gary that I probably should have given you for this. He had a ring made with that little crest on it that he wore in some pictures.
I mean, people care about D&D so much that opening the artworks to the communities always give you, right, some feedback, stuff we didn't notice, because after all, it's a collective endeavor. And D&D history definitely tells that, right? I mean, there are pivotal people, but it's a long way of, of people who have been contributing to this history. And I don't know who said we made this together. Probably Jeremy Crawford in an interview recently, which I think is a really powerful concept. Jessica, you told me also something. You told me to prepare an image with a zoomed out version of this, right?
Yeah, well, we're talking about Easter eggs, little unexpected details that you can find in images. And this one has a very tiny but very unusual Easter egg. If you look, I don't know if I
Kind
can
of where
really
the
point it out,
diagonal
but-
stairs are. You can see where there's a bit of diagonal towards the bottom there.
Yeah, right above the diagonal stairs in sort of the lower left quadrant, you'll find a little square thing. It almost looks like a phone booth. And Parkinson said it's a TARDIS from Doctor Who.
Ah. You heard it first.
Yeah. And of course, this exhibition is dedicated.
This
No,
one
people,
hit.
this has caused quite a hubbub in the room. Okay. He also claims you can see the Doctor and K9 up in there as well. So
Wow.
I can't spot them, or I need a magnifying
Yeah,
glass.
we need, our old eyes aren't working
Yeah,
so well.
I'm too old. But, we actually have dedicated this exhibition in part to the memory of Keith Parkinson, who is, of course, no longer with us. And we have, we think, many, fortunately, of his most iconic images here, including Lord Sauce Charge, including the cover for the original Forgotten Realms box set, Dark Walk Around Moonshae, the cover of Waterdeep in the North, which is probably the first iconic depiction of Xanathar. We've got some great stuff to honor his memory.
You heard it first here. Okay, guys, thank you so much for being an amazing audience. It's really moving to see all these guys here. Thank you very much, and for the great questions. We show also our American friends that we are a community and we are all involved into this. Those who didn't see the exhibition, just go right now. Just go now and don't lose any time doing other interesting things, but that's rather interesting. Let's give a great round of applause to Lucca Comics and Games first. Thank you for an amazing D&D anniversary this year, and to Jessica Lee Patterson, Jon Peterson, Erol Otus, and Tyler Jacobson. Thank you guys. Thank you.